Harry Kane and Heung-min Son are one of the greatest scoring duos that we've seen in Premier League history. Over their 7 seasons together, they combined for a record 53 goals in the Premier League. When compared to the second most, Drogba and Lampard, they only had 36, and considering the success of those two, that is really impressive. But the relationship is all but over after Kane moved on in the summer to Bayern. Son, he's not taking it too badly. He's in great form as well with his new mate Maddison under Ange at Spurs. But Kane has also moved on. Developed a similar partnership with another former Premier League player. That man is Leroy Sané. We're going to compare how similar Sané and Son are when they play with Kane, and whether Sané can do what Son failed to do and help guide Kane to his first trophy in his career. But first, we're going to have a little look at the stats behind Kane and Son's record-breaking partnership at Spurs. During Kane's time at Spurs, he played 298 games in all competitions with Son. They combined for 60 goals in all competitions during that time, 53 of those, as I said, being in the Premier League. And last season, they combined for 6. They first played together in a 1-0 away win at Sunderland in 2015-16, but their first combination together was in a 3-0 win away at Stoke in October 2016. So they're really doing a nice tour of proper Premier League years clubs. And their final combination together, that bittersweet moment, was away at Leeds in May 2023 when Son assisted Kane in his final game at Spurs and also relegated Sam Allardyce's Leeds, who I completely forgot managed them at the time, which is pretty mental. And they truly did build a wonderful relationship over those 7 seasons. But now Kane's got to find a new man, and Leroy Sané is that man. So far this season, Kane and Sané have combined for 6 goals in the 14 games they've played together. It's really quite impressive to see that, because Sané is currently 1 involvement above Kyle Walker with Kane, who has played with Kane for club and country for 158 times so far. So it really shows how potent that relationship has been. But how similar are the two relationships? Well, first off, we're going to take a look at both Kane's final game with Son, that Leeds game that I mentioned, and we're also going to look at the De Klassiker, which was at the weekend against Dortmund, in which Bayern won 4-0. I'm going to show you the similarities in the heat maps between Kane and Son and Kane and Sané, and show you the kind of similar areas that are also taken up and the slight differences that we saw. So to compare the two relationships, we're going to look in the top at Kane and Son's heat map. That was the last game they played together, their away victory against Leeds. And in the bottom two, you can see Kane and Sané in their most recent victory away at Dortmund. Now, I think the most interesting thing to see is the difference in Harry Kane's heat map. Now, it's a lot darker in the top left in that final Spurs game. And that's largely because, as we know, Kane was the main outlet that Spurs used. He was the man that was on the ball all of the time. And that's kind of seen in the fact that he's picking up the ball really deep, even on the edge of his own penalty box in some cases. Because Spurs were quite a defensive team at that point, playing on the counter, he's picking the ball up across loads of different parts of the pitch and being that kind of main creative outlet. Whereas when you look in the bottom left, you can see Harry Kane now at Bayern, and he's a lot less demanded of in a creative aspect. He still is a threat, but he isn't the only threat that they have. And that means that he can push into the penalty box and be more of a goal-scoring threat. You can see there, right on the penalty area, that is probably his darkest spot, and that's really where you want him to be on the end of those crosses that you have Sané and Gnabry and Musiala for. But when we compare Son and Sané, they are quite similar. Admittedly, though, Son is quite a bit deeper, as we said, because of the defensive structure that Spurs were using at the time. But they are both focused on that left-hand side. Sané's got a little bit more flexibility to move across the front three because of Bayern's flexibility they do have with Gnabry and Musiala as well. They can move and kind of interchange. But we are seeing them pick up the balls in similar areas and be willing to invert and cut inside. Sané does have Alphonso Davies, who overlaps, which gives him more impetus to invert and to play more centrally, as he has done kind of this season, as we'll see in a couple of screenshots. But they are quite similar in the way that they do play off Harry Kane, as we'll see in those screenshots. And I think it's really shown in the similar positions that they are picking up in those heat maps that we've just seen. But I think if we were to see Son and Kane in a current Spurs team, those heat maps would be very similar. But because obviously there was a change in the tactics and Spurs not doing as well last season, that's kind of the differences that we are seeing. So we're going to take a look at a couple of instances where Sané and Son interlink very similarly with Kane across obviously 2 goals from both Bayern and Spurs. We're going to start off first with a goal against Southampton in 2017 where Spurs won 5-2 and Harry Kane scored a hat-trick in. So first thing you can see here is Dele Alli is the man in the middle who's picked up the ball. Son is over here on the wide left and Kane is in the middle centrally, kind of about to run off Dele Alli as he normally does. So as we move it on one, you can see that Dele Alli's picked up the ball and turned. Son is making the run in behind, getting beyond the back line of the defence, and Kane is very much aware of what's going on at the moment, and he's quite key to how he reacts to Son's movement. So Son runs in behind, Dele Alli plays that ball through, and then of course Kane is very much aware of what's about to happen, Son gets the ball, crosses the ball in here, and it's an easy tap in for Kane. Now, this is a goal that you see very, very often with City, particularly with those cutbacks across the box. It's a goal that we see a lot in elite football at the moment, but it really depends on the relationship and the movement between the players. And when we see the goal for Bayern in the game against Dortmund, this is the second goal that Bayern scored. I believe it's the first that Harry Kane scored in this game. You can see quite similarly how Kane is using his elite movement, particularly, but how the relationship with Sané is also quite similar. And again, it's a third man run. So Goretzka is the man carrying the ball at the moment, carrying the ball forward here. Sané is the man here on the left-hand side, and Kane is over on the far side. So Goretzka plays this ball forwards into this space that Sané is running in behind. Now, everyone knows that Leroy Sané is absolutely rapid. Ball gets in behind. Harry Kane's already making this movement into the back of the box. He's completely shrugged off Schlotterbeck, who had a pretty stinky game in that match. Really bad game. And the ball gets played through. Sané gets to it, and the ball's played across to Kane, who finishes at the back post. Now, these may seem like sort of easy tap-in goals for Harry Kane to be on the end of, but to have the trusting relationship and the understanding of the player that he's with both Son and Sané, really makes these goals, because he's not going to make that movement unless he has the idea that Sané or Son will pick him out, and in both instances they do. So it really highlights the similarities in the relationship already that's been created with Sané and Son, with Son and Kane. And we move on to this second instant of comparing similarities. As I said earlier, Kane is obviously infamous for his long ball and his passing play. And particularly in this game against Leeds, you can see that really obviously, and the relationship that he's built up with Son, in that he's going to make those runs because you know that pass is going to come. So Kane picks up the ball a lot deeper, as you might expect, which sometimes does happen. So Højbjerg had already won back the ball, and it gets played into Kane. Kane kind of shrugs off Forshaw here, and then sees that Son is a lot higher up and makes that pass over the top of the defence, because he sees that Son's made that run in behind that we can't yet see, but we do see in this next one. So this ball gets pinged all the way across into Son, who's made that run, who knows that Kane's always looking for that run in behind. Son takes the ball down really, really nicely, and then finishes beyond, I believe it's Joel Robles, it might be Melier, I'm not entirely sure, but it really shows how Son is so ultra aware of what Kane wants to do when he picks up the ball in his own half. And we've seen what Kane does when he's in his own half. He has that range, he can score from halfway. So that relationship that Son had with him, and he knows that he's going to do that, has translated already to what he's doing with Leroy Sané. Now, admittedly, Bochum aren't the best team in the world, but this does also highlight how the relationship between Sané and Son, I knew it was going to happen at some point. The relationship between Kane and Sané has developed over time. So in the first instance, Alphonso Davies is a free kick here. He plays the ball into Kane. So that's why Kane's got quite a lot of time. It's quite a quickly taken free kick. They've caught Bochum sort of out of shape. So you can see just right in the corner of this picture here, that is Leroy Sané. And Kane has got his head up and can see that Sané's starting to move in that direction. But already Sané knows what's about to happen. So you can see that he's disappeared from here. You can just about see the white of his boot. But Kane's looked up, seen that the space is here to play the ball into that area, and does so. And that really shows an understanding between Sané and Kane already of what Kane wants to look to do in loads of situations. Admittedly, he's an elite quality player, so this is going to happen a lot. But Sané already has that understanding, already knows that he's going to go in behind when Kane picks up the ball in those areas. And he does. Kane plays a really nice pass from inside his own half, all the way through to Sané here, who gets in behind. He's 1v1 with the goalkeeper. He's left the defenders for dead, and he scores. Now, that might only be two instances that we've seen similarities between a couple of goals between Son and Sané. But I think it really highlights, Son and Kane had a really, really long relationship. And at the end, they were really firing on all cylinders, really kind of telepathic in some instances. But I feel like you can see between Sané and Kane now, admittedly, they're both elite players. And in some instances, they're playing against not as good teams. But this is a relationship that's going to be really important and is really developing for Bayern and really could help Kane and Bayern towards Kane's first trophy of his career. So can Sané be the one to help Kane achieve what Son couldn't? It looks likely. The only man standing in their way currently is Xabi Alonso at Leverkusen, who are flying in, playing unbelievably nice football. I'm sure there's about 8 million videos on him at the moment. But as we've seen in the relationship that Kane and Sané have developed, I really do feel that this can be a partnership that can help guide Kane to get that first trophy of his career with Bayern, be that the Bundesliga this year, maybe even the Champions League, or going into next season, developing that relationship and really building on it. But I really can see this being a really, really fruitful partnership for them going into the future. And I really would like Kane to win something at some point, be it the Bundesliga or the Champions League. Admittedly, Xabi Alonso would be the football nerds winner this season, but this relationship with Kane and Sané, I can really see it happening this year. But let me know what you think. Can Kane finally get that first trophy of his career? And will Sané be the man to overtake Son in the kind of best relationships that he's had in his career? Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you'd like to. And I will see you in the next one.